Easter 2013, everyday life and maintaining faith? In the interview, Presiding Bishop of Württemberg, Otfried July.
Bishop July, about 2 billion Christians around the world are celebrating Easter this weekend. In Germany, only about half the population still identifies as belonging to one of the Christian churches. What does Easter mean to people who have no connection to church and faith?
Ostern ist für mich erstmal ein lebenswendendes Fest und ich glaube
For me, Easter is a pivotal celebration, and it carries a message for the entire world. For people who are less familiar with religious language, it might be easier to think in terms of a song lyric by the German singer Udo Lindenberg. He talked of life beyond the horizon. It's about something other than our day-to-day emotional state, the daily news, the images we see of death and suffering in the world.
Tagesquerschnitte an Nachrichten, nicht die Todes- und Leidensbilder dieser Welt.
The message of Easter bathes our world in a new light. And that also helps us stand up in faith and go forward with our heads held high.
Is it possible to communicate that message to those on the margins of our society in Germany or to those suffering in Syria?
I think it is, because it says to those people that the message of Easter places them in the light of the resurrection, despite their position in society and the problems they face. It says you, with your name and your personality, are worthy of God's attention and His promise of a future. And if that message is accompanied and underscored by action, by pastoral care, then it will strike a chord in the lives of those surviving on state benefits, for example. I have contact with Christians in Syria, and from them I know that it is their belief in the message of Easter that keeps them going and keeps them able to survive the unspeakable situation of war without simply being overcome by the horror of the violence there.
It's common in Germany for people to give up something for the 40 days of Lent. It might be their mobile phone or alcohol or something else. But the Church's message still doesn't seem to get through to them. Does the Church need to come up with new strategies to get the message of Easter across, including words like resurrection, which many children are unfamiliar with?
I think we do have to learn new ways of speaking to reach the different sections of society in Germany. The Protestant Church has always assumed its audience is the educated middle class, and we have a particular vocabulary when speaking to them. That's why we have to go with the flow more and adapt our language to the way people speak. We need to translate that message into a language that everyone can understand. But we also have to make sure that they also understand how special the message is. To respond to your comment about giving things up for Lent, it's a way for people to show that they want to transcend the level of everyday concerns. We all want to take a break somehow. I always say the Sunday service is a break from day-to-day life. And Easter is a break from the reality of suffering and death in the world. So there is a chance to pick up on the realities of people's day-to-day lives and ask them why, for instance, they are giving up their mobile phones for Lent. If people answer it's because they want a bit of peace and quiet and don't want to be reachable all the time, that's a chance to start talking about how reachable they are in their lives in general.
Just a few weeks ago, billions of people around the world saw some very powerful images coming from Rome, the balcony with its red curtains, and then a man in white appeared. It was the new Pope. The Roman Catholic Church, whether it's a strong or a weak church, knows how to produce powerful images. As a Lutheran bishop, do you sometimes envy the Catholics for their ability to create such images?
Christians should not be envious of each other, and I am sincerely pleased for the Roman Catholic Church that it has a new leader, and I wish the new Pope personally all the best and good health. May God be with him. There's absolutely no doubt that the theatricality of the Catholic liturgy, with its colors and symbolism, is far better suited to television than the normal Lutheran services built around a sermon. Although, of course, we do sing together, and there is a feeling of celebration among the congregation. But the imagery surrounding the orthodoxy of Roman Catholicism is, of course, more media-friendly, to use a modern phrase, as far as the imagery is concerned.
You're probably one of the few members of the clergy in Germany, whether Catholic or Protestant, to have met Cardinal Bergoglio many years ago. Can you briefly describe the impression he made on you? What kind of man is he? What was your first impression?
I remember it well. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. There was no ceremony. No one else was there. He just opened the door when we arrived at his building in Buenos Aires. I was there as part of a small delegation of German Lutherans, and he welcomed us into his living room. I was impressed by his immediate openness toward us, and by the way he described the social situation in his country and in South America in general. He's often described as a modest man, and I can confirm that based on my experience with him then. And his openness to ecumenical issues, which is not necessarily to be expected from a cardinal from South America, where Protestants are in the minority. But if I remember rightly, we also had a short conversation about Hölderlin. He's a great admirer of that South German poet.
Germany is preparing to celebrate the 500th anniversary of Luther's Reformation in 2017. If you could ask one thing of the new Pope in Rome in connection with that, what would it be? Do you have specific hopes for the relationship between Christian confessions for the time leading up to 2017?
What I wish for, and this goes out to the Lutheran community, because if you want something from someone else, you first have to be clear about your own obligations, is for Lutherans not to engage in hero worship of Luther. But we don't plan to do that. It will be a reaffirmation of faith in the Lutheran rediscovery of certain articles of faith. I think it should also be an open ecumenical celebration. I don't know if the Pope will travel to Württemberg in 2017. But the invitation to the Roman Catholic Church to join us in this celebration of Christ stands. I also represent the worldwide Lutheran Church, and in that capacity I hope it will not be just a German celebration, but one involving all the continents, Africa, Asia, Latin America, Europe, when we can show the world that we're open to a new start.
A few weeks ago, and this is something special, you traveled to Oman, where you held talks with some of the country's leaders about freedom of religion and about a possible Muslim-Christian dialogue. How did you approach those talks as a Protestant and a German?
I was pleased to be invited by the religious affairs minister. I had already met him in Baden-Württemberg. I gave a speech in the Grand Mosque, and I talked about the personal impressions of Islam that I have gathered through my lifetime, about Muslims I've known. So it was important for me to make it clear that I, too, have had prejudices and preconceived ideas. And I told the audience about these. The second point I wanted to make was that we are moving ever closer together. We're living in a globalized society. In this world, we're all living in the same house, just in different rooms. It's up to us whether we open our doors and invite the neighbors in, or close each room off like a fortress.
Stuttgart, where your diocese is based, is where tens of thousands of Muslims, workers and migrants, have made their home in Germany. Is that going well, or would you say Christians in Germany need to learn more about themselves so that they can reach out to their Muslim neighbors?
I'd like to answer that in two parts. First, some communities actively seek out dialogue, and they want to share their everyday experiences. And it's one of my main demands that we should get to know our neighbors and speak to each other. But I think that's separate from the dialogue between religions. That deals with the truths of our beliefs. That's about finding common ground. So we face two different tasks. One is to be good neighbors, to coexist on an everyday level, finding the best solutions to social problems. The other is to talk about the truth of our beliefs, including the message of Easter and the resurrection.
You're also the Vice President of the Lutheran World Federation. As such, what's your view of the crisis currently faced by Christians in many parts of the world, in Nigeria, Egypt, Syria, the difficulties faced by Christians in mainly Muslim countries, where the situation is very different to Oman, for example?
Well, it is sometimes heartrending when you meet people at international conferences, like a woman I sat next to at an event about 6 months ago. She was from Nigeria and had experienced the religious conflict there firsthand. That brings it home to you, what a difficult situation they're in. The pressure that Christians are under, the persecution. It's a constant reminder that there really is no alternative for talking to each other, seeking dialogue. But we must remember, and this is something I always advocate, what those people want from us is that we bear witness to their persecution and the difficulties they have to live with, to make people in our societies aware of it, to pray for them, and to let them know that they are not alone.
Bishop July, thank you very much for speaking to Deutsche Welle.
Thanks very much.